Hi everyone, and I just would like you to meet the beautiful Julie Smethurst.
Hi Tanya, how are you?
I'm good, Julie. How are you? So Julie's a naturopath, a life coach, and a qualified pharmacist. She uses her knowledge and skills to provide a holistic approach to wellness. And on your website, Julie, you've got this quote that I just loved, and it said, "I deal in wellness and doctors deal with disease."
Thanks Tanya, I'm glad you really liked it.
Yeah, it's good. So Julie is one of our wellness angels, and she looks at the health side of our clients. So I thought it really important to actually interview Julie and get everyone to understand the importance of wellness. So what do you consider as wellness?
For me, wellness it's not just the absence of disease. For me, wellness is someone when they have a sparkle in their eye, a spring in their step, they're just feeling really well, often very optimistic, resilient, really balanced, and they're really, how could you say, very grounded when things, whether they're going right or wrong, they're quite stable in their environment. Yeah.
So do you think that when they feel like that, they're better at making life choices and decisions?
Yeah, they're much more resilient. I often find that if you're in a bad state, you'll make bad decisions. If you're in a really good state, you'll make great decisions. You can tell the times when you haven't been quite right and you've made a decision and then later you go, what the hell was I thinking? So I find that when you're on track and you're going really well, got lots of energy, things aren't so overwhelming, not as stressful. You tend to have things really in perspective.
And what I love about you, because just to let the audience know, I actually wasn't feeling the best last week, so I went and saw Julie, and I was really intrigued with how you went about sort of the process to see what was wrong with me. It was quite scientific in the way you tried to decide or work out what was actually wrong. But I wonder if do you use some of the your background as being a pharmacist in sort of that elimination of what could be wrong with your clients? Or
Definitely. I think everything is always a blending of everything that you've ever been. So, being a mother, a wife, a sister, pharmacist, a naturopath, and having done life coaching and things as well, and just having a whole heap of life experience. So having worked, I've worked in the health industry for close to 30 years now. So yes, I started when I was about 5. So yeah, I think that you just pull everything in together. So having been working in community pharmacy for probably 20 something years, I had so many times when I had people just coming in, I'm not feeling very well, this, that. So I had a lot of experience pulling all these things together and seeing a lot of people on medication and stuff like that. So I sort of go through and I look at some of the wellness parameters. So there's people's cellular structure and their internal sort of energy. And then I can have a look at people's blood tests. And so I sort of pull everything to it, as well as just really observing people. There's different signs. So there might be nail signs, tongue signs, looking at their face and their iris, how they move. It's the moment you meet someone, you just things are going around and you're just putting it all together and collecting all this information and just getting a real picture of how things are going. And it's even seeing the words people use, and then you're looking at all their patterns, so patterns of eating, thinking, drinking, sleeping, recharging, and you just have a real look around to see what's going on. So this is where, having been a pharmacist, sometimes I'd be dispensing, 15 different medications to one person. And, they might be living longer, but they don't have the quality of life, They'd be rushing home for a cup of tea, because their health insurances would be too high to go overseas, or they didn't want to be away from the doctors and things like that. I think it's part of a plan. People have got to have a really big plan. And this is where you can't medicate out of a bad lifestyle. So this is where it's just the whole package of the whole thing. And this is where I find that mainstream medicine falls down a little bit in this, that there's no one that really sits down and has the time to do it. And it's not so much, it's the whole structure of how things are set up. You know, go in for an appointment to the doctor and it's like 10 minutes, quick, tell me your problem, bang, I'll throw something at you. No one actually sits down and goes, okay, well, let's have a look at why this keeps happening. And there's some things to sort of fix up over here, but there's also looking at the back end. Now, why is this continually happening and what needs to take place? So, yeah, so I've seen this a lot of times. And, you know, I know that having worked in pharmacy, you know, there'd be some people that had just got out of hospital, they had a bleeding ulcer. This one lady, she was on Nexium, and I was dispensing the script, and I just said to her, you know, while you're taking Nexium, you really need to be not drinking so much coffee or alcohol or, you know, certain things. And you should have seen her eyes twang when I said caffeine. And I said, oh, so how many cups of coffee are you having a day? She goes, oh, 20. And I went, oh, my God. I was
No way.
You've just come out of hospital, being in hospital for 4 or 5 days, and no one's asked you one of these questions. So she would have been back in hospital again within a week, just doing that sort of thing. It was just irritating all the stomach lining and everything. So this is where, for me, you've got to look at big picture. Just taking a tablet just doesn't solve everything.
I sort of smiled halfway through that, because I can imagine when you first meet someone, straight away you're sitting there and in your mind you're diagnosing them for everything that they've got.
Well, I'm just looking, I'm thinking, bing, 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 bing. And I think the thing is, I always say no judgment. You just need to come to me. You need to be real. Let me know what's going on. I can let you know what I think. So you're just paying me for my opinion. I can let you know these are the things you need to do. I can't actually do it for you.
Yeah. You've got to be committed to fix it yourself, don't you?
Yeah. Do the action and what it needs to take. So some people are they've made the decision before they come and see me, yeah, I'm getting out of this. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Other people are a bit, you know, like, oh, that's a bit hard. And I've had so many people that I'll say something and they'll go, oh, there's no way I could do that. And I will see them often 2 or 3 weeks later and they go, oh, that wasn't that hard. I went, yeah. No, it's not actually. So, yeah, so everyone's different.
And do you people that some people sort of think that what you do is a bit of witchcraft, or, you know, or do people think you're a little bit kooky? Or
no, it's amazing in that there's so many different variations of what you can be as a naturopath. And I think I'm more towards the science-based thing just because of my whole background. So, and I'm not too overly I sort of try to be a bit balanced. So I take a lot of the principles from naturopathy. I take what I've learned and used and know what works and is practical from mainstream, and I sort of meld it all in together. Yeah, so I find a lot of people who haven't actually been to naturopaths before always love to come and see me because she's a bit more balanced. She's not going to be, you know, slapping fish over the top of me or things like that. So no.
Because I think that's what I enjoyed when I went to you. Like, you know, you did the basic things that probably a doctor would do. You looked at my blood pressure and made sure that was okay, you know, and then you obviously sent me off for some blood tests, and you actually looking at the medical, you know, background as to when you're trying to decipher what's wrong with me, you're actually looking for evidence to say, well, actually this is actually what's wrong, and then obviously we'll work from there. So
well, a lot of it is testing and measuring it. So if I get a baseline of what's going on, and then we can do some work, and then I can retest it to see how things have changed or improved. So, you know, you can give people certain bits and pieces, but they don't actually integrate it properly. So this is where I'm just looking around. So if there's things that I can get some numbers and things, I don't test people just for the hell of it. I usually do it when there's some sort of, how could you say, consequence, or it would change how I would view something or do something for someone. So, yeah. Yeah,
well, that was like with me, as you know, I just got a virus and just was not getting over it. And so I thought it was great. But then I come away thinking, oh, my God, I think they've got these other things I need to work on.
Well, I think I find with women is that they really don't do much about their health. They're so busy looking after everyone else that they're used to as, oh, I'm just getting old, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so busy or whatever, and they let a lot of things slide. So I often find some come to see me and I'm like, they're just feeling absolutely hellish. I can tell they're dark around the eyes, they're just dragging themselves up the stairs. They're sort of you can tell that things haven't been right for a little while. And then you ask them, how long have you been feeling like this? And they just sit down and I can see their mind ticking over, only about 5 years. I'm like, wow. Okay.
That's just such a key point, because that's the thing that we find when we're mothers. We just put everyone in front of ourselves and we always come last. But to think some of us can wait 5-10 years until we address why we feel so bad, and we just keep getting our sorry asses out of bed every day and just living this awful life.
Yeah, well, I think this is where it's sort of, I try and instill in so many of my clients is that women tend to be the core of a family unit. Everything comes from there. So they need to fill themselves up, and what overflows they can give out to other people. If you're running on empty, every time you're giving to someone, it's like taking a part of you, and it's like just pulling, you're getting angry and irritated, and everyone's going, oh, why are you so cranky? And it's because you're so drained. If you can get where you're filled up, then you're actually, you can give with ease. And what's happening too with our children, they don't listen to what we say, they look at how we're modelling behaviour. So this is, when you're doing that sort of thing, you're saying to your children, I only value when I'm doing, not me as a person. So I'm a human doing, not a human being. So I always say that, you're teaching your children as you go along as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Oh, sorry. Sorry about the internet there. It was a little bit unstable, so hopefully we'll get Julie back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the circle of life was just spinning around there. So what do you think are 3 things that people can do that in their everyday life that could just automatically change the way they feel?
3 things. Well, I find people basically eat too much and move too little. So what I often say, what I have to get to people is they always go, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do any exercise or whatever. I say integrate it into your day. Make it simple. It might be as simple as walking 10 minutes in one direction, 10 minutes back again. You've got 24 hours. If you cannot spare 20 minutes to do that, you need to reorganize your life because you've got it way out of proportion. So this is where, when you're stressed and those sort of things, you're creating adrenaline, fight or flight. So if you go for a walk, you're actually getting rid of some of those sorts of things, or otherwise you're going to be really prone to diabetes or putting on weight around your stomach just because you're mobilizing sugars and then you're not using them. So I find that that's really key. With some other people, they just don't drink much water. I'm like, some people go, oh, I drink about 6 cups of coffee, but I actually don't drink any water. And I'm like, every time you're having a caffeine drink, you're losing a glass of water.
Yeah.
So they're in need. And your brain's 80% water, your body's 70% water. Everything happens in water. I'm like, you just need to, it's just a basic necessity of life, and just getting that sort of happening. The other one is just getting really people, how could you say, almost like self-care, just making sure that they, in their own day, it's not just scheduling in all the work things, it's also scheduling in the top-up stuff for you. So I always say, when you're actually valuing yourself, that's when things start to flow and work properly. Because when you're valuing yourself and you're filling yourself up and all that sort of thing, you're running the best. Because really what I find with people is that we only allow other people to treat us as you don't actually allow people to treat you any badly than you treat yourself.
Yeah,
so it sets up really great boundaries. So if you don't honour and value yourself, you tend to put up with a lot of rubbish. If you do value and honour yourself, there's sort of a boundary of like, hey, I'm not putting up with that, you know, and it's really good. It's a really good protective sort of mechanism. And really, we only come into this world with one body, us, and then we leave with that. So when that wears out, so do you. So I always say you need to value it for what it is. And once you get over a certain line where it goes from a functional problem to a structural problem, you cannot go back. It's just management. And I've seen that over the years in pharmacy. And I'm like, so I see a lot of people over here with the functional problems. I want to make sure that they don't go to structural problems, so that they're having a great life. So when people are retired or in their later years, they're much more mobile, so they've got freedom, they're traveling, doing some great stuff. Not they get to the end of their working life and then they drop dead. So this is where I'm saying the choices that you make today have a huge effect on how you show up later on in your life. So you've got to ask yourself, the choices that I'm making today, are they going to be great for when I'm like 70 or whatever? And am I going to be in a really good space where I'm going to be mobile, independent, you know, really loving life? Or am I just going to be doing a patch job on all the, how could you say, the consequences of the decisions that I've made earlier in my life when I really didn't value my health or myself?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like a key reason that sort of you're part of my team is because we look at the divorce process holistically as well. So it's, and as I say all the time, like divorce is so much more than just going to a lawyer. We've got to worry about everything that happens to us. And your part of that is so key, making sure that, you know, we are mentally and physically well, but it also helps us to make really good decisions, and whether that be decisions right now for what we're going to do legally, financially, or whatever, but it's also then having the strength inside of us to know that our future is going to be amazing. And we only do that if we feel whole as a person. And, you know, that's where you're so key. So I suppose the next question I was going to ask you is, do you see people come into your practice that probably coming in and they feel probably a little run down, and as you said, they've got bags under their eyes, they don't feel well, and then all of a sudden you work with them and there's some key changes in them, and like, what do you see that happens to them emotionally out of starting to feel better physically?
I often find that usually when they're not feeling very well, they're very much in that survival mode. So they're sort of going along, putting up with things, just getting by and that sort of stuff. When they start to get their energy back and they're starting to feel well, they're starting to feel a lot more, how could you say, a lot more strength and resilient. And they're starting to get a bit clearer about, this is not working for me, this is working for me, that sort of thing. So I think then they start to get more confidence and they start to go for where they really want to go. So instead of, you know, going through the cycle of just doing time, they actually then want to go to that transition of starting to live the life that they really want to live. So that's great. So I've had some people that have come to see me that, for instance, I had one woman who was, she was in a corporate job. She had really bad, like, sort of IBS-like symptoms. So as soon as she went to give a presentation or whatever, she couldn't rely on her body. Like, she'd go like, I just need to, you know, go to the toilet, like, and, you know, she's like, I can't do this presentation to this group full of, you know, clients or whatever, and I'm having to run off to the toilet every 5 seconds, and I'm worried, you know, there might be a major accident. And we worked on that, got it all sorted out, has never had a problem since, and that would be almost a year and a half ago now. And she's like, whoa. So she's took on a promotion. She's doing a lot of presentations and things. It totally changed her life. She's since then she was I think she was divorced, and she ended up getting back into the dating scene again, and just, you know, getting out there and living a life. So it was fabulous. it's great to see people that they're sort of dragging themselves along, just sort of doing time and getting by, and then seeing them prosper, you know, that their spark comes back in their eye, they're proactive, they want to get out there, they're thinking about where they want to be, how they want to show up, you know, starting to get, you know, adventures planned and, you know, ideas happening that's been sitting. Yeah. So it's fabulous. I just love it. So if I can facilitate in that and help them in any way, it's fabulous.
So in what you were just talking about then, you actually also said that, you know, sometimes they've come to you and they haven't, you know, they didn't even actually realise how bad they felt or whatever. And then after they've sort of addressed it, then, you know, obviously the world's their oyster, so to speak. But do you get many women come to you for physical and then realise that actually it's their relationship and stuff like that needs to change, that they've been putting up with a whole lot of garbage in their life, or as you said, they've, you know, sometimes they're mirroring their husband or their partner or whoever is actually treating them in a way that they're accepting of, and then after they've been to you and they feel better, they actually say, no more, had enough, it's time to address this.
Yeah, very often. So I have some people, so when you don't say something that's happening emotionally in your life and you're not actually processing or responding that, maybe it's, you know, fear and uncertainty or whatever. So what happens is it often lodges in certain organs and it becomes then more a physical problem. So, for instance, you know, if you're having gallbladder problems, sometimes that is linked to resentment. Liver problems is linked to anger. Lungs is to grief. Sometimes they usually end up with a lot of gut problems because they're holding their stress in their gut. So when you're really stressed, all your blood supply is going to your muscles for fight or flight. It's not going to your digestive system, and they often end up with a lot of digestive problems. Autoimmune diseases are when your body's attacking yourself. So it's almost like that same on an emotional thing where there's not much self-love going, that your body's sort of attacking itself. So it presents a lot of things. And that's where I suppose in that I sort of merge those things together without, so your mainstream doctor wouldn't even think about that, whereas I'm sort of blending a couple of different worlds together and thinking about all these things that are going around in my head. So, and there's a lot of books being written around that, you know, Louise Hay, and, you know, there's heaps of different people that would have that sort of philosophy. But yeah, I often find that people will be getting better and better, and then they start to talk about those sorts of problems. So initially people will come to you for the safe problems, and you'll talk through that, and then it's just before they leave or something, then they'll bring up the real problem. So this is where it's like peeling the layers of an onion. But it's good, you know, it has to come. And if they have to build up some confidence through doing those things, I'm more than happy to facilitate and help them in that realm. It's not a problem.
So what advice would you give to, say we've got a lady watching this right now and she feels that, you know, things just aren't right. She's really tired. She's unhappy. She's had enough. You know, everything is just getting too much for her. And maybe it is her relationship, maybe she doesn't know, but if it was actually, and I think, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, but I think with us as women, in a lot of cases, we know deep down when something's not right, and, you know, physically we feel it, but, you know, we've sort of got this third eye thing happening where we go, we know it's not right, but sometimes the reality of it is just too hard for us to address. But if there's something, you know, if someone was watching this, any advice that you could give them on maybe what they could do to start with, to maybe start to address how they're feeling and what they can do to make their life better?
I very much feel that, especially if people going through a divorce or something like that, it's something that's not working. Something's not quite right, and it's almost that transition period to something, you know, it's almost like, I love this, you know, visual thing of like you've got a person and then there's another person sitting up coming out of it. So it's a real time of transformation through something that wasn't working into something than it was. And I often find that women, they really need to work on themselves. So this is where, instead of, you know, where I often say to people, you know, if you're going, oh, I just need to be loved more, and you know, that sort of thing, I say to them, listen to the words you're saying. Maybe this is not about someone else outside you. Maybe it's about you. You actually need to love yourself a little bit more. So instead of your resources being on the outside of you, they need to be on the inside of you. You need to build them up. So this is where I often get people in a time of a lot of uncertainty, is to get them having some certainty happening. And that might be in getting some rituals and things going that they do every day that really about looking after themselves. So it might be, you know, anything from drinking plenty of water to exercising every day to green smoothies to, you know, it might be doing some meditation or other things. But it's different for different people. And I sort of work with people of where they are, and doing it in, there's so many different pathways to the same outcome. And this is where I look at a certain person and I'm like, you need to do that with joy in your heart, rather than I'm telling you to do something and you hate every second of it. So there's quite a few ways that you can do things and move towards something. But I'm very much for, you need to build up the resources within yourself. So you can be anywhere, any house, anything, and it's all within you. No one can take it away from you. And I think that that is the key to long-lasting success and change, definitely.
And I think, like, you sort of said some really key things there that I totally agree with. I think if we've been in a relationship for, whether it be 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, in a lot of cases we sort of, you know, we've spoken about that already, we forget about ourselves. And then when we do start to feel bad and we go, well, you know, I've got to address my unhappiness, we put ourselves last. But we ultimately have to make that choice ourselves, don't we, to go, look, we've got to change this. If we don't do it, no one's going to do it for us, and we're going to continue to stay unhappy. And I think that's primarily what we're all trying to build here in this business that we're putting together, is to make sure that those women, even though they feel that way, and whilst you're there to help them from a wellbeing perspective, we've got every sort of area looked after so that they can feel weak and vulnerable and whatever. And by the time they've been through all of us, they'll come out the other side feeling amazing and completely different. And that's what great work you do. And so I suppose the next question. Sorry, go on.
Sorry. And this is where I often say to people, instead of agonising over, you know, like a decision, should I leave, should I stay, that sort of thing, I often say to them, visualise into the future, whether it may be 1 year's time, 3 years' time. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be? How do you want to look? How you want to act? And start going towards that. When you start doing that and it's almost like it's already here, and living the way that you'd really want to be, that's when I say that things will start to drop off and it'll start to become very, very clear. So rather than this agonising over this yes, no, it's going towards, so regardless of the outcome that happens, you're going where you want to go.
Yeah.
And then really going, you know, who do I have to be to get that? You know, how do I have to be showing up every day? So it really starts getting you moving in the direction of where you want to go, regardless of actually the outcome that happens. You know, your husband might do a 360 and whatever, and, you know, it just starts changing the dynamics, because you've got no control over anyone else. You've only got control over yourself. And sometimes when you start to do some changes, other things change, because that same dynamic doesn't exist, because it just goes past, because it doesn't do that whole chain of reaction that used to happen before. So, yeah.
And I think we see that every day, don't we, in as far as once a woman starts to actually build up her strength, and where maybe before she was submissive in the relationship or just did what she was told, once she starts to feel differently herself, she completely acts differently in the relationship, and one or two things will happen. Either the partner will sit there and go, wow, I really, really like this new person. This is the person that maybe, you hear it quite often, I married years ago. Or they might say, actually, this person, who is with women especially, we seem to grow and evolve, that the guys go, oh, actually, no, this is all just a bit too much for me. But whatever happens, it happens because it's meant to happen, whether it's stay or whether it's go. Yeah.
And I think too that sometimes it's not that someone's a bad person or a good person, that people just don't work together anymore. There's not that fit anymore. So sometimes when someone's wounded and tired, it's a good fit for something or other, but someone becomes a bit stronger, and it's like that whole dynamic just doesn't work anymore. So it's sort of like you're just needing to move on, and just go, there's better things out there that await for me. That's someone that's a better fit to where I want to go and who I want to be.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. Like, so in as far as that whole wellness, it just doesn't come from our physical. It comes a great deal from our mental and how we think, and as you said, how we show up in the world and what we think of ourselves. And when we think that we are amazing, then the world treats us like we're amazing. If the world, or if we think that we're just not worthy of whatever it is, then we get treated like that as well. So ultimately what you do is absolutely amazing, and I wanted to thank you for your time. And my last question to you would be is, if you had to do your life all over again and do it completely differently, would you still do this career that you're doing right now, or would you do something else?
I think I wouldn't change a thing. Basically, one thing has led to another thing led to another thing. So sometimes we need to have gone through a certain thing and feeling the discomfort of being off track to actually get back on track again. So no, I don't think I would have changed a thing. I think I needed to have done pharmacy before to give me a lot of framework and structure and things like that. And now it's just giving me so much of a better dimension then to add to my other things that I'm doing. I suppose I've gone more from very structured and scientific to a little bit more creative and free-flowing. So yeah, definitely.
Well, I love what you do. So how can people find you, and where can they get in contact?
I've got a website. It's called Feeling Great Naturopath. So they can easily Google that up. And I've got like 100+ recipes on my website. I blog every week and have done for a good 3 or 4 years. So yeah, there's also online booking there, just on the right-hand side of the homepage that they can click on, and they can make an appointment to come and see me. I do phone consults as well as Skype, as well as in person. So and there's lots of different bits and pieces. So on my website, you can also sign up to my newsletter or weekly email, so you'll get to know the things that are going on and around, and the new things that are coming out. So looking forward to hopefully seeing you sometime in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So thank you.
That's okay. It's been lovely giving this interview, and hopefully some of our audience has benefited from it. So just to highlight what I do, so I'm Tanya Somerton, the Divorce Angel, and part of our step-by-step process is that we just don't look at the legal side of divorce. We look at the financial, the emotional, the physical, and everything else you might need to get through a divorce. So if you need to contact me, you can find me at www.tanyasomerton.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Tanya Somerton Divorce Angel. But please, if you need any help or assistance from any of my army of angels, please get in contact, because we'd love to hear from you. So thanks, Julie. It's been wonderful. And I'll be back in a few weeks to get those results from my test.
No worries.
Thank you.